What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today I wanted to try out Azumarill in the Go Battle League. This is a Pokemon that has been around for so long. One of the best, just neutral, bulky Pokemon that you're ever really going to see. It's been around since Season 1. It seems like it's never going to go away. And I don't really like using it a lot, but I mean, I figured I might as well give it a spotlight now because of just how strong it is. Also, I stream my battles live basically every single day at twitch.tv/ItsAXN. So if you want to see live insights into my gameplay or potentially see my teams early, please make sure to check me out there. The link to that is in the description. But without further ado, let's get into the battles and see what Azumarill can do. All right, let's get into game number one. What are we going to see our Azumarill lead off into? Into a Talonflame, actually. One of the best Pokemon, not only our lead match we can see, but also just, I guess, our entire team, right? We have Power Gem on Corsola. We have a Water-type move on Shadow Drapion as well. They end up safe-swapping a non-Shadow Feraligatr, a Pokemon we don't have a hard answer to, but honestly, Azumarill is pretty strong in this matchup. The Shadow Gator makes this a little bit more tricky because they can three-shot us with Hydro Cannons after the Shadow Claws, but I think with the non-Shadow, we can easily survive in the Zero-Shield matchup with these three Hydro Cannons, maybe get a shield from them, and we've already landed a player off against them to trip them down into range where we can maybe fast them down later on. They're throwing yet another charge move, likely going to be a Hydro Cannon, and at this point, I feel like maybe I can go for either an ambitious farm down or at the very least get an energy lead here, keep our Azumarill alive, because I'm not really worried about switch advantage in this game. I just want to get a lot of energy and have either Aqua Tails to go against that Talonflame, or maybe energy for the final Pokemon, which it looks like it is going to be a Gastrodon. At this point, this is looking a little bit uncomfortable for us. They have the Mud Slapper into our Shadow Drapion, but with that said, we ended up getting the defense drop on that Crunch, which means now this Aqua Tails can do a lot more damage. If they end up shielding this move, I might be able to reach another one here. If they don't throw a charge move, which they don't, we reach the Aqua Tail. That's fantastic. There's a lot of energy on this Gastrodon that they likely would have to shield if they want to keep. They end up letting it go. Aqua Tail is enough to knock out. In comes the Talonflame here. I'm going to swap right back into Azumarill, knowing that I cannot get farmed down here by Incinerates just yet. Go for this Ice Beam. These bubbles as well are going to add up, and hopefully this will knock them out. Or get a shield. I guess it wouldn't quite knock out from this range, but it would put them into a range where we could easily Astonish down with our Corsola. Now I have a decision to make. Do I want to shield this, force them to throw energy, or should I no-shield this and try to go for a farm down or potentially reaching a move with our Corsola before they get to 2 or 3 charge moves with this Talonflame here? I opt to come in Corsola, try our best to Astonish this all the way down. It could be a Brave Bird coming through here. I'm going to shield it up just in case. Our opponent does actually opt to throw the big move, so a good shield by me. And now as long as I don't see a catch coming, then we would throw the move. But if we do see the catch, just farm it all the way down. We have the Power Gem now loaded for the Talonflame, and we should be able to take that one. GG's to our opponent. Next matchup, we're going to see an Azumarill in the lead up against a Shadow Annihilate. A very good lead matchup, but honestly, it's a little bit more awkward than you might expect it to be. If they want to 2-shield through you, they can actually win this matchup, which is kind of crazy to say. But if they do end up winning this matchup, then they could potentially put in some work in the backline. Our opponent actually, though, opting to swap out. I'm going to switch into our Shadow Drapion, knowing that it is a poison-type Pokemon. We have super effective fast food pressure, and I'm not really worried about winning switch this game. I'd rather just kind of neutralize this. Oh, they go for a Hydro Pump. That's even worse, actually. If that was a player up, we could survive that easily. Maybe get off 2 charge moves, but since they went for a Hydro Pump, actually, I don't know if I'll get a second move off. This might be kind of awkward for us right now. We do reach the Aqua Tail, but that's not a Crunch. It's going to do almost nothing here to this Azumarill, and because they are able to farm us all the way down, they'll probably get another shield from our Corsola now at this point. I could have come back in with our Azumarill, but I felt like not doing that because I kind of figured at this point, if I can shield once farm all the way down, I'll have a lot of energy for the back line. I would expect the Annihilate to come in here. They have super effective Rage Fist. They have a lot of energy. We'll see what ends up happening here. Our opponent ends up bringing in a Shadow Drapion. We're going to go for a Nightshade bait. At this point, I'm expecting them to shield this. They know my team. I know theirs. But they end up making the call. They end up no-shielding the Nightshade. A good call by them, but this next Nightshade is going to come through. If they end up letting this one go, it's going to do a lot of damage. They do. Okay, I guess they're just going to sack this, try to sweep, I guess, with their Annihilate. At this point, that's a bold play. I can shield up this Crunch, potentially go for a farm down here, and maybe I'll have energy for that Annihilate later on. In comes the Crunch. It would basically one-shot us if we let it through. I'm going to catch the Aqua Tail on our Azumarill now. I have basically 100 energy here. I have an energy, or a move, rather, on my Corsola. So the way that I can win this game is by throwing 3 moves, probably getting 2 Ice Beams off, going for that Nightshade later on this game, and as long as they can't come out of this matchup with a move, we should be able to win it. With that said, they did swap out with quite a bit of energy. If this opposing trainer can manage their energy perfectly, potentially land a boosted Rage Fist against our Corsola, we might be able to lose this game, which would be kind of embarrassing, saying we're so strong against Annihilate in the back. In comes the Ice Beam. Number 2 gets the second shield, and if I can reach another Ice Beam here, we're going to be in a good spot. Our opponent, though, opting to overfarm quite a bit. If they have another move, they're going to be extremely boosted. Rage Fist from a Shadow Annihilate might just be enough to knock out my Corsola. We have the move, but so do they. Am I going to get knocked out here? I'm almost certain that we will. Rage Fist is a strong attack, and they are already so boosted. Somehow we ended up losing that one there. GG's to our opponent. All right, next game. Okay, so I have to talk about this for just a second. My next game is against an opponent who is abusing a glitch right now to make it so I could not battle this opponent. The second I queued into this trainer named Jukabuka, they had an interesting glitch going on where they basically could force their opponent to always lose the game by crashing their app. As you can see here, the game just kind of froze. it's not doing anything else. It literally crashed like this. It's not going to close the app. It's just going to stay on the screen until you restart the game. So unfortunately, this trainer was able to reach Legend already by abusing this glitch. You can see they're already at 29.79. They're miles ahead of the competition. And because of this glitch, it's kind of put a dampener on the season. It makes a lot of people kind of mad that they are not able to fight for that first Legend title legitimately. But I mean, I guess at this point, it's out there. People know about this glitch. They know that these trainers are abusing it. So hopefully, it's not going to happen too much more in the future. But I mean, it was like my fourth or fifth battle on the day that I ended up getting this, and it was a little bit unfortunate there. Hopefully, not going to see too much more of that this season. All right, next matchup, though, what are we going to see? A Malamar lead. Fantastic lead matchup here. We actually have a lot of play into this, and our opponent opts to safe swap a Shadow Drapion. This Pokemon is well known for being a nuisance when it comes to being a safe swap. They build up so much energy. The thing about Azumarill is you are weak to these poison-type moves, but you also resist the charge moves, right? Unless they're running Sludge Bomb, I guess, but most of the time, it's just going to be a Aqua Tail and Crunch variant here. What do they end up throwing? Obviously, the Crunch is the better move if they don't have Sludge Bomb. They even get a defense drop here, which is a little bit annoying. With that said, I know I have so much play against that Malamar in the back line. I'm not really that worried. I just want to get rid of the Shadow Drapion so it can't really just start ripping through our entire team. They end up throwing another charge move here. I can either go for an Astonish down or maybe even a Poison Jab or Poison Sting down rather with our Shadow Drapion, depending on where I think energy is going to be more valuable. And I end up thinking that our Shadow Drapion could potentially be the target where I want to have this energy. Looks like we're going to have the reverse matchup here. They had their Drapion into our Azumarill. Now we have our Drapion into their Azumarill. This matchup is going to play out very similarly. Do we get the debuff? We actually do. So both of us getting the debuff on the first Crunch here. Kind of funny stuff. These poison things are adding up so much more now, and because I've had a decent energy lead actually going into this matchup, I think if I shield once, I can reach 3 charge moves, knock out this Azumarill before they can even reach another Ice Beam, and at this point, I know Corsola is going to have to take a foul play later on to finish out this game, but it doesn't even matter. Corsola is so bulky, I can Astonish down that Malamar after I can trip it down with Aqua Tails and Crunches, so I think we should have this game in the bag. I'm going to throw an Aqua Tail. At this point, it should be enough. Our opponent opts to let it go and just try to win the game with their Malamar. I know in the 2-shield matchup here, they could probably farm me all the way down, but they're going to take an Aqua Tail or maybe even a Crunch in the process. So I'm going to try my best to whittle down this Malamar, get the shields if I can. I'm going to go for yet another Aqua Tail. Maybe I should have just gone for the Crunch there so I could go for a Nightshade on our Corsola. But if they do let this go, then I know for a fact we Astonish all the way down, or maybe even get to 2 charge moves here. Our opponent opting to throw a charge move, and now I'm just going to invest all of my resources into Corsola, go for a fast move farm down against Malamar. This Pokemon is very squishy here. Well, I guess I shouldn't say very squishy, but it's not the bulkiest Pokemon, right? And we have a very bulky Pokemon on our side. Super effective foul play, not going to be enough to knock us out. Psywave is adding up, but as you can see, it's not even going to put us close to range where we'd get knocked out by the next couple fast moves. They throw another charge move here, but I know they are nowhere near the third, so I can shield this up, farm all the way down, and they superpower us for dominance, I suppose. GG's to them. All right, next matchup, we're going to see our Azumarill up against a Talonflame once again. One of the best leads you could really see here. I'm going to stay in the lead matchup. Our opponent, though, going to opt to switch out to a Dunsparce. I wish I had an Annihilate or something to hard answer this. Dunsparce safe swap is a little bit risky this day and age, but we don't have that hard answer. In fact, our backline is a little bit weak to this Pokemon, but with that said, we are so strong against the Talonflame that I'm not really that worried about it right now. In comes the next charge move. I'm very happy to neutralize this Dunsparce if we can. Drill Run number 2 ends up putting us just below half health, but I have a Play Rough. I have almost 100 energy actually loaded up on this Azumarill right now. Play Rough ends up landing, doing quite a bit of damage to this Dunsparce right now, and I think we're in a pretty good position as long as we can land the next charge move. Even if they want to shield this, then Drapion can kind of just start putting in a lot of work this game, and if they end up no-shielding, then I know that at this point, that Talonflame has nowhere to go. Our opponent opting to catch on Talonflame, though. Good catch, but I saw it coming, so I went for an Ice Beam rather than going for a Play Rough. Our opponent is going to have to opt to either shield the next move or basically just let a Talonflame go at this point. I want to see a shield, though, honestly. If I get a shield here, I'm going to be in a very good spot, which fortunately for us, though, we do get that shield, and in comes their next charge move on this Talonflame. Could be a Flame Charge, could be a Fly, maybe a Brave Bird, but probably not. It's actually a Flame Charge, which means these Incinerates are going to start adding up against us a little bit quicker right now. Aqua Tail going to come through, likely either grab their shield or maybe even just get the knockout against them. They want a shield, okay. Maybe they want to save this Talonflame for the backline. I'm totally fine if they want to invest in a Pokemon that we are pretty strong against. At this point, they are attack boosted, though. I don't want to take too many more Incinerates if I can help it. Our opponent opts to swap out. I know they are almost at a Drill Run on this Dunsparce, so I'm going to throw the Aqua Tail right away, make sure I can get the knockout, but I also overfarm just enough to be able to get to another charge move against that Talonflame if it happens to come back in. In the back, though, going to be a Superior, so our opponent not even having a solid answer to our Shadow Drapion. I guess Talonflame and Dunsparce are, like, neutral at best into it, but we have a Superior, which is weak to it in the backline, which means that this Crunch is going to put them into range where I can Astonish down with our Corsola, maybe even throw a charge move against this if I need to, but I know there's really no way we lose this matchup. Even if they try to catch a move, like, our Fast Move Pressure is just going to add up way too quickly, and even though 2 Frenzy Plants can end up knocking us out here, it's not going to be able to knock us out in the Zero Shield. They need quite a few Vine Whips for that. They do try to make a catch on their Talonflame, but the thing thing is, at this point, I just don't want to take these Incinerates. They're going to do way more damage than these Vine Whips. I know for a fact I can survive 2 Frenzy Plants here, so I'm just going for the full fast move farm down and take the game. They actually go for an Aerialist, actually, which, I mean, at that point, they're really not going to win the game one way or another, but an interesting call. All right, next game is Guzzlord in the lead. A very good lead matchup for a Fairy type, but Guzzlord has been gifted that new charge attack of Sludge Bomb. Our opponent's opting to stay in for a minute, which is actually a little bit interesting. I'm surprised that they have not swapped out just yet, but with that said, they are going to throw a Sludge Bomb, put us about half health, I guess, at this point, and then we're going to wait a turn, make sure that we don't get caught on here with this Play Rough, and see what our opponent's going to do. Play Rough ends up getting the shield from Guzzlord. Obviously, that would have one-shot if they let it through, and now they're building up to yet another attack here. I'm going to keep on farming. It seems like they might be trying to catch a move, which is exactly what they end up going for here. They come in with a Talonflame. I could have come in Shadow Drapion, but I think that Corsola is just a better answer if I don't want to invest shields. It seems like they might be a little bit weak to Azumarill right now, so I'm not all that concerned about keeping Switch as much as I am, just making sure this Talonflame is going to be out of the way. Nightshade gonna come through, might get the knockout, might not. I don't really care at this point. I just want to make sure we're in a very good spot in the back line here. I can get a Power Gem, rather, off against this Guzzlord, which should do quite a bit of damage. It's not going to do enough to, like, knock them out or anything, but because we landed this move, I think our Shadow Drapion, if we have to, could probably crunch this and knock them out. And at this point, there's a chance maybe I could survive the Sludge Bomb, but I'm fine just investing in our other Pokemon. They might even bait us here, which is going to be the case. We call a Dragon Claw bait. That does almost nothing to us. Ice Beam going to come through, either get the knockout or get the final shield from this Guzzlord. We're up 2 shields to 0 right now. This is absolutely crazy. I think, though, that this is going to be a Sludge Bomb this time. They cannot afford to bait. I'm going to shield this up. This is the easiest way I have to take this out. In comes the next Dragon Tail. I wait to make sure that we don't get caught on here. Ice Beam should be more than enough to take out this Guzzlord from this range. And now Shadow Drapion hopefully is going to have play in the back line. And that is exactly what you want to see. A double fire team comp. Our Aqua Tails and our Poison Stings would have been way too much for that Drapion or that Typhlosion down shields. All right, next game, a Shadow Alolan Sandslash in the lead. A very neutral lead matchup. The worst thing about this is that our Drapion, if it happens to line up against us later on, is not going to be very happy, but our Azumarill is in a pretty good spot because they are running Powder Snow rather than Shadow Claw as their fast move. I can tank these Drill Runs pretty easily at this point. Bubble is adding up against them as well. Drill Run doing quite a bit of damage, but not going to quite two-shot us here because of their resisted fast move, and Play Rough, despite being resisted on its own, is going to do quite a bit of damage combined with these bubbles. It does put them very low at this point, but our opponent opts to swap out actually to a Whiscash of all things, a very interesting Pokemon to see. I respond with our Corsola, knowing that this is a very neutral matchup, and Corsola generally has a pretty good time in these. I'm going to hope that they don't debuff us with the potential Scald. They go for Scald, and of course they get the debuff, which is not what we want to see, but I still have these 2 Nightshades I should be able to get to before they get to enough moves that they could knock out our Corsola here. Nightshade number 1 does quite a bit of damage, honestly, but not quite enough to knock out just yet, but these Astonishes are putting them into range where the next one should be able to knock out, as long as we don't get debuffed once again. I guess no debuff chance if they go for a Mud Bomb here. I'm going to throw the Nightshade immediately, try our best to get a debuff against this if possible, or a knockout rather, if possible. They end up going and letting it go. In comes an Azumarill as their final Pokemon. I don't want to give them the farm down because we don't really want to give that Azumarill that much energy. With that said, though, a Shadow Alolan Sandslash is still in the back for our opponent. This is going to be a little bit hard to take over because I know at this point they have so much energy they didn't throw in that lead matchup. They might be able to get to 3 Ice Punches before we can get to 3 Aqua Tails. If that is the case, we're going to have to make a catch on our Azumarill. These Poison Stings doing absolutely nothing right now to this Alolan Sandslash. We have to shield yet again, and at this point, being down shields with our Shadow Drapion means now that the Azumarill could potentially knock us out with Play Rough, we are in a bit of a tricky spot. I'm going to go for once again an Aqua Tail, either draw the shield or get the knockout, or opponent opting to shield that move, and then I go for a catch on the Ice Punch, and this should be an Ice Punch, at least if it's a Drill Run, if it's a little bit bad for us, but no, Ice Punch is going to be caught, and now I go for the Play Rough against their Azumarill. This matchup is going to be very tricky. I see ways to win this. It's probably going to be another catch that we'd have to make if I want any chance here. But if I can get another Play Rough off, that's also going to help out quite a bit. But I think at this point, these bubbles and that Ice Punch catch actually has put us into range where we are going to get knocked out by this Play Rough, and that is not looking good for us at all. I'll have to make another catch here, maybe catch a Play Rough with our Shadow Drapion onto our Corsola. If I can do that and I can get 2 charge moves off, maybe there's a chance for us right now, but it is still going to be such a slim margin of error. I'm going to go for this Crunch. I don't know when they're going to throw the charge move. I'm going to try to catch on arbitrary timing. Do I get it? No, they wait the turn. They obviously were planning on throwing their move, but they waited long enough to see that I did not quite fall for their trap there. And because of that, they have another charge move. I don't have quite enough energy to crunch them, and we are going to lose this game, unfortunately. GG's to them. Very good patience. I tried my best, but that was a very tricky endgame. Next matchup, Azumarill up against a Shadow Feraligatr. We saw the normal Feraligatr earlier in the video. Shadow is a lot harder to take down, and they can probably just shield once and go for a full farm down against us, have some energy for the backline, and take out our Azumarill, which likely is going to have a lot of play in the backline. With that said, I don't have a lot of play into this Shadow Gator, at least not down energy with our backline. backline, so I want to just kind of get some sort of advantage if I can. Likely going to be a shield advantage here after throwing a play rough against the Shadow Feraligatr. In comes the play rough, and there is that first shield as we all expected, and in comes yet another Hydro Cannon. They're getting very close to that third one, so I'm going to have to keep that in mind that they might just knock us out here, but that's fine if they do. I've done quite a bit of work with our Azumarill at this point, and I end up not throwing the move because that would have been bad timing. I would have been CMP anyway. They end up throwing the Hydro Cannon, knocking us out, and in comes our Shadow Drapion. This is going to be a very ambitious play right now, but what I want to do is I want to try to 2-shield farm down, maybe get a shield back, and maybe if they let that go, I won't have to go for it. But if I can, I want to farm them all the way down here because I know that there's not a lot in the game that wants to be down energy into the Shadow Drapion. The only thing I could really think of would maybe be like an Azumarill at this point, but Azumarill plus a Shadow Feraligatr lead would be a little bit unlikely, so I'm going to invest in Shadow Drapion, go for as much farm down as I can get here. We got the defense drop, so I think this farm down is going to be easy to get now. In comes all of these Poison Stings, almost 100 energy on our Shadow Drapion, and in the back going to be a Clodsire Pokemon that really does not want to take these Aqua Tails. I think at this point 3 Aqua Tails should be enough to knock them out as long as they don't end up catching on something. We have almost another 3 Aqua Tails ready to go. I want to keep as much energy as possible just in case they have something in the back line we need to go for a Crunch or an Aqua Tail against. They end up catching, but I guess, is that a catch you really want to make? They catch on a Superior. I mean, I guess that's a good play, right? They waste an Aqua Tail, but I have a Shadow Drapion still, right? This is going to do so much damage. I can CMP them on this Crunch, or if I don't, then I'm still just going to land the Crunch, and they can overfarm if they want to, but my Poison Stings are going to do quite a bit of damage. And because I still have my Corsola alive as well, they haven't seen it yet. They go for an air release. They try to go for it against our Drapion, but I make a catch with our Corsola. That is a lot of wasted energy right now. I can farm this all the way down, go for a Nightshade against that Clodsire, and I should be able to win this game either by going for a Nightshade with our Corsola, or if we somehow get knocked out, going for that Aqua Tail that we almost have loaded on our Shadow Drapion. In comes our Nightshade. This should be more than enough to knock them out, or at the very least put them into fast move farm down range for either one of our remaining Pokemon. But no, that does pick up the knockout. We can Astonish down the Superior and take the win there. GG's to them. Next thing we're going to see a Steelix in the lead. Shadow Steelix used to be one of the best matchups in the game for an Azumarill, but we have to keep in mind that nowadays they are running Thunderfang, which means they have quite a bit more neutral play here, but these non-stab Thunderfangs aren't doing all that much damage. I'm at least going to bait a Hydro Pump here. Maybe we'll get a shield from them, maybe we won't, but either way, I just want to try our best to neutralize this Pokemon so our Drapion doesn't really have to deal with it. What charge moves do they have here? They build up a ton of energy. I mean, if they had Psychic Fangs, they probably would have thrown that pretty soon. What are we about to get hit by? Okay, it's just a Crunch. I was thinking maybe an Earthquake. I guess if they're throwing Crunches here, that probably means they're running Crunch and Breaking Swipe, actually. So they have no charge move pressure against us whatsoever, but these Thunder Fangs have added up quite a bit. I'm going to go for this Ice Beam. I'm going to undercharge it as well, because I want to swap out to our Shadow Drapion, go for a full Poison Sting down here, have an energy lead. And what the heck? They bring in a Drifblim against our Shadow Drapion. That is not even close to an answer. I'm thinking maybe there's a Corsola in the backline. That might be one reason to make this play. In comes that first Crunch, but since they're running the non-Shadow Drifblim, if they get a debuff off against us, our next Crunch is definitely not going to knock them out unless I can get the debuff against them as well. In comes that Icy Wind, as I was saying. And now Crunch number 2 is going to be thrown. I would love a debuff right now, but I don't know if we're going to be lucky enough to get it. Let's see what happens. Crunch ends up getting shielded. We do get the debuff, which is fantastic, but they reach yet another Icy Wind. So right now, if I threw a Crunch, it would basically be a -1 damage. So I don't want to throw it just yet. Luckily, though, our opponent makes the play where they swap out to, I guess they have Altaria in the backline. I'm surprised they didn't bring in Altaria into our Shadow Drapion. Either way, though, this game, he would have been a very good spot in the backline. I guess they were kind of just hoping that we didn't have another hard answer to this Altaria in the back. But I think Corsola is going to be a pretty good answer here, right? I have Power Gem that's going to be super effective. It's going to be able to basically knock this thing out at this point. If it doesn't, it should put them into farm down range for either one of our other Pokemon. Power Gem, honestly, doing a little bit less damage than I thought, and we actually get farm down here. Hopefully they don't get to a Sky Attack. If they do, maybe we lose this game, but no, we are able to farm them all the way down because of how slow Altaria is. And if we see that Drifblim come in, I'm going to watch for a catch with that Steelix, which is exactly what ends up happening here. He Poison Sting it down, and now we have 2 Crunches to go against this Drifblim. I think at this point, though, 1 Crunch will be more than enough. Even if they got that catch off, I could have got 1 off against that Drifblim, 1 off against the Steelix, and we can win the game. All right, next matchup. What are we going to see with our Azumarill in the lead? A Shadow Drapion, once again, one of the most neutral matchups, but one of the most annoying matchups, depending on how they play it out. With that said, Azumarill is one of our better picks to answer this Pokemon. I resist the charge move, so I'm going to go for this Ice Beam immediately. They know it's an Ice Beam. They might just no-shield this, knowing it's not going to do as much damage as a potential Play Rough would have, but that's fine. I want them to no-shield. I don't want this thing to have any health for our backline, and I know they're just going to have to waste this in the lead. Crunch going to come through. It gets the debuff. That's the running theme for today, I guess. Every single time you throw a charge move against our Azumarill, it's going to get a debuff. It actually let us get a move off first. That's kind of interesting. Normally, you take 3 charge moves before getting that second one, but they haven't even thrown a second charge move yet, which means we can go and just let this go at this point. Might even get a farm down against the Shadow Drapion, but I know I can snipe this down potentially. Oh, okay, I guess we simul swap here into an Azumarill and a Corsola. They were one away from a potential move, or they were at an Aqua Tail at the worst, so I was going to try to astonish them down, but unfortunately for us, it was a simul swap, but I guess somewhat fortunately for us, it is a decent matchup to be in. Corsola against Azumarill is actually such a good matchup for Corsola, just because we do quite a bit more damage with our fast moves, and our charge moves are so efficient, they get to them quite a bit quicker as well. That Azumarill, despite the fact it makes this matchup kind of close, is not all that bad for us. This next move is going to put them very low into either Poison Sting downrange or maybe even Astonish downrange, depending on how I'd want to play this out. It's kind of like a 50-50 call. Do I want to shield this, or do I think that my Drapion up shield is going to be way more useful in the backline? In comes our Shadow Drapion, and once again, I guess, we both swap out. I bring in my Drapion, another Drifloon comes in here, and I guess I can take the game there. GG's to them. All right, next matchup, a Shadow Annihilate in the lead. Very, very scary Pokemon. Are we going to be able to overcome this one? I sure hope so. This Pokemon is one of the scariest ones to see here, and they are staying in this lead matchup, actually. They can brute force their way through this matchup if they really want to, but it depends on exactly how they want to play it. In comes the first Ice Beam. Does this get shielded? Obviously it will. Shadow Annihilate being one of the squishiest Pokemon out there, they probably want to keep it alive if they can. First Rage Fist is going to come through. Luckily they did end up throwing a little bit late here, so they're not boosting their counters as much as they could have, at least not as early on, and they end up, I guess, trying to swap out to an Azumarill of their own right now, and I think this is a pretty good position. I was talking about how good Corsola is into Azumarill, and the thing is, in the Zero Shield matchup, it's actually kind of close, right? But I am totally fine if I give them a huge energy lead, because it's still going to be such a good matchup here, because as long as they can still outpace to 2 Nightshades before 3 moves are reached, it's just as good of a matchup as if they were energy dry. In comes this next charge move. It's going to do almost nothing to us. I shouldn't say that. It'll put us into the red, but it's not going to be able to knock us out before we're going to be able to get these 2 Nightshades off, and that should be enough to make it so either we can Poison Sting down, maybe Astonish down. This Azumarill is basically not a threat anymore this game. In comes our next Nightshade here. I guess we almost couldn't throw it there. That was kind of weird. I tried to throw the move a couple of Astonishes earlier. Luckily, though, we are still able to throw this attack off, get the knockout against this Azumarill, and in comes a Serperior in the backline, a Pokemon that we have our Shadow Drapion for. Bring that right in, and our opponent realizing not much they can do at that point. All right, next game, what are we going to see? Azumarill up against a Talonflame once again. Very interesting matchup. If they want to stay in, they can go for Brave Birds here. And since they are staying in, I'm kind of wondering what that means for the backline. I like keeping my Azumarill alive if they are this scared of our Azu in the lead. So maybe I'll try to shield the first move. I think that normally they go for a Brave Bird first, then a Fly second, if that is the moveset they're running. But if they bait us with a Fly landed Brave Bird, then honestly that is kind of ridiculously good play by them. That's what they're going to do. And comes the Fly bait. Hopefully they're not running Brave Bird. They end up waiting a turn here, making sure that they don't swap out likely a Brave Bird about to one-shot, or not one-shot, but put me so low at this point, almost into the red, and a Shadow Gator in the backline. That is not what you want to see. I'm making such a risky bait here. I'm probably not getting to another move this game, so this Ice Beam is almost useless, but now I have to bring in our Galarian Corsola, weak to Shadow Claw, but able to sponge these Hydro Cannons a little bit better than most things in this game, so maybe there's still a chance for us. Hydro Cannon able to put us almost into the red. After these Shadow Claws, we are well in the red, and now I think I'd have to shield this up if I want any chance of winning this one. In comes the next charge move from the Skater, gets that shield. I get this Nightshade off, but if I want to reach my next Nightshade, then I'm going to have to throw on CMP, which is absolutely terrible, because they might be able to make a catch. Nightshade ends up getting that shield, and they'd have to CMP us if they want to knock us out, but they end up catching, whoa, my goodness, that was on a Dunsparce as well. That's the worst case scenario, actually. I wish that I didn't throw this move, but I think that our switch clock wasn't quite up yet, so I had to do that move if I didn't want to get knocked out. I guess I could have thrown a Power Gem, but, yeah, that was not good. That was not good at all. In comes our next grunt from our Shadow Drapion. It ends up putting them pretty low here, but the thing is, they reach a drill run. We might survive this, but it doesn't really matter at this point. They just have a little bit too much health left over this game that I don't think there's much we can do. I do have 3 Pokemon left, but this Aqua Tail, even if it gets the knockout, isn't really going to matter at this point. In comes Aqua Tail, doesn't even get that knockout. GG's to our opponent. They played that one pretty well. Alright, what are we going to see in the next game? Azumarill up against an Azumarill in the lead. One of the most exciting lead matchups that you could possibly see. This is definitely going to be one of the quickest matchups in the game. Surely we'll just go for one charge move, knock them out, win the lead. If only that's how they play out. These play routes are going to take so long. What I like to do here is if I can get a CMP, or if they throw energy pretty early on, then I like to actually no-shield and try to swap out to Shadow Drapion. After tripping them down with this move, if they don't have too much energy, our Poison Stings are going to add up so much quicker and put them closer to range, or potentially I could knock them out with a Crunch, or maybe just a Crunch and an Aqua Tail way earlier than otherwise. They end up swapping out to a Dugong of all things, which is not really a great answer to a Drapion up energy, especially if you get that debuff on the first move, which is just the theme of the day, right? The debuff on that first crunch. Our opponents get it. I am getting it, I guess, today. So I guess it's a take it and leave it kind of thing. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. But today is the kind of day that I'm getting it a lot. We get yet another crunch through. If they shield this, I have another crunch loaded. I'm expecting a no shield right now, which is exactly what ends up coming through. And now the Azumarill is going to come back in. I don't want to waste all this energy. I'm debuffed, and Azumarill is going to resist it all. I'm going to save all that energy, come back in my own Azumarill, and potentially Corsola in the backline should have a lot of play. In comes this play rough, does a lot of damage, but not quite enough where the next one would knock us out. But I'm going to overfarm here just in case they want to have something in the backline that could be a little bit tricky for us. And next is going to be this play rough coming through. Doesn't quite get the knockout, but we see their final Pokemon is a Galarian Corsola. With that said, if I can go for this Ice Beam here, I think I might even get 2 off at this point. If I went for a Play Rough, I probably wouldn't get a second Charge Move, but going for Ice Beam here means that I will get a second move through, and if I can land a second Ice Beam, then I know for a fact either I Astonish down, or I'm going to be able to get the Shield, which means that our energy on our Shadow Drapion should be able to knock out this Corsola. They opt to no-shield it, so at this point, I just tap my phone screen, right? I just have to survive one Nightshade, shield the next, Astonish this down, Astonish down the Azumarill, and I should be able to take the game. They do throw the back-to-back charge moves here, but I know Corsola basically can't stack 3 moves, right? Well, nothing can. But Corsola specifically would be like 4 more Astonishes away from getting to another move. So at this point, I just tap my screen, right? I take out the Corsola, I take out the Azumarill. Even if they knock me out here with this move, that's fine. Our Drapion can easily Poison Sting this down. They're not at a second charge move. And if this doesn't knock me out, if it's an Ice Beam, we actually can just Simul KO with our Corsola. GG's to our opponent. Next matchup, we're going to see Azumarill in the lead up against a Shadow Feraligatr. One of those leads that I've been saying is a little bit tricky to deal with just because Shadow Gator is such an impressive fast move Pokemon. These Shadow Claws ripping through us and our bubbles being resisted is always a little bit tricky. They actually throw pretty early here, though. After 7 Shadow Claws, they're not building up too much extra energy, which doesn't really matter in this matchup, but it's always interesting to see how your opponent ends up playing out this matchup. Sometimes they like to let you throw first, sometimes they build up a little bit of extra energy, but this player seems to throw about as soon as they can on good timing. They do end up shooting that first play rough. Big surprise here. Shadow Gator ends up using a shield. Who would have thought? And now our Hydro Cannon is going to be resisted here against our Azumarill, and they will get to another Hydro Cannon here in just a second, but they actually let us get to this next charge move before they're going to throw their next Hydro Cannon, meaning either we get 2 shields from them, or potentially we just get a huge amount of damage against this Shadow Feraligatr. Since they did let that go, I don't want to give them the farm down against our Azumarill. I'm going to swap into our Shadow Drapion, go for a full Poison Sting down here, and see what we can do. We end up baiting out the Diggersby, a Pokemon our backline really does not want to see, which means that we can go for these Aqua Tails, keep this away from our Corsola, potentially chip this down, and put it into a range where either a Power Gem could knock out, or even just make it so we can knock it out with our Drapion in the first place. Next Aqua Tail going to come through, our opponent opting to let it go once again. If we can draw that final shield, then our Corsola even could deal with this, and Diggersby, the only reason it's good into Corsola is because you resist the charge moves. It doesn't have a lot of pressure into me, so I just need to make sure this final shield goes away, or potentially we just knock this thing out. We'll see what they end up doing here. Aqua Tail ends up getting their shield, and now we're going to make a catch on Azumarill, make it so they have so much trouble now, they have to throw a full-on Scorching Sands to knock us out. And because of that, I'm actually going to make an interesting play. Come in Corsola against the Diggersby, knowing that at this point, I can probably go for a Power Gem, overfarm a ton here, have energy on Shadow Drapion, and watch for the catch on that Shadow Gator. Our opponent does throw a charge move right before we reach our Power Gem. This is going to do about a third of our health, but that is totally fine. We have so much energy left in the bank. I'm expecting that either Drapion or Corsola should have play in the backline. Our opponent makes the catch attempt, but unfortunately does not work out for them, and they end up top lefting, probably an Annihilate or something in the backline that they were kind of weak to our Corsola, but GG's to them. Very, very fun game. And as you can see, 28-48 as our ending elo. It is such a tricky thing climbing right now. I went like 14 and 11 today. I climbed like 10 points. It is such a slow trek to reaching the top here. Alright, well, thank you so much for watching today's video. I stream my battles live basically every day at twitch.tv/ItsAXN, so if you want to see this kind of content live, please make sure to check me out there. Also, I'm going to be uploading a lot more videos to the channel. If you want to see more content like this, please make sure to subscribe. Thank you again for watching, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.